Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's workbook webinar, Reconcile Media Payments and Improve Cash Flow in Real Time with FreeWheel Strata and Deltek WorkBook. My name is Rebecca Wiener, PCI Senior Marketing Manager. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to ask them in the Q&A box, and we will address all questions at the end of the presentation. Joining me today from Deltek are Reagan Riddock and Teresa Robbins. I'm now going to pass it over to Reagan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar where we'll be discussing how to reconcile media payments and improve cash flow in real time with FreeWheel Strata and Deltek WorkBook. My name is Reagan Riddock, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Having spent more than 15 years in the ad industry, moving from traffic to creative resourcing to recruiting and then to agency operations, I now use that industry knowledge as the product marketing director for our agency ERP solution called Deltek WorkBook. And my co-presenter today is Teresa Robbins, also a 20-year ad industry vet. She's now the product director at Deltek for WorkBook. All right, so now that we've made the appropriate introductions, let's get to the good stuff. As if managing an agency wasn't complicated enough, for those agencies that manage media planning and buying in-house, it can make the complexity and inefficiencies of back-office processes exponentially worse. When your agency buys media, you need to pay for that media space up front, and this can be a substantial expense, especially for large campaigns. This can put a strain on your agency's cash flow, since you would need to have the necessary funds available to cover those costs. And then in addition to those upfront costs, there may be delays in receiving payment from your clients for the campaign. This can further exacerbate cash flow issues, as your finance team may need to wait for several weeks or even months to receive payment. This makes post-campaign reconciliations complex, time-consuming, and labor-intensive for both the media and the finance teams. And when they're working in disparate systems or using spreadsheets, re-entering invoice information by hand, or waiting hours for spreadsheets to import, the resulting data can't be trusted because it's already out of date or potentially fraught with errors. The result of this disorderly process can wreak havoc on cash flow and your agency's livelihood. In our time working with agencies to optimize this process, we've seen a lot of workarounds. Some that seem to help in the short term, but end up causing more problems in the long run. Many agencies lean deeper into spreadsheets, creating fancy pivot tables, distributing files between finance and media and shared drives. And sure, that can help make sure that the data in the spreadsheets is more accurate, but you're still running the risk of additional errors when one or the other department has to re-enter that data into their siloed system. Some agencies then have to spend additional time calculating credits for the invoices that were accidentally paid twice, or even calling vendors to just get to the truth. In the long run, these agencies aren't really solving the redundancy or error problems, and they're making the wasted time issue even worse. Some agencies throw more people at the problem, reallocating finance personas, or spending additional overhead to hire more people in the finance department to liaise with media. This takes valuable resources away from mission-critical work and valuable funds away from strategic agency investments. Other agencies employ systems that allow them to import media buy information into their accounting systems. But this import functionality can have valuable resources twiddling their thumbs, waiting hours in the best case scenario, and in the worst, days if the import gets interrupted midstream multiple times. All the while, without being able to multitask in the accounting system to get anything else done while they wait. By the time the information gets uploaded, it's ridiculously out of date and essentially useless. Like the workarounds already mentioned, while it seemed like an import option might save time and avoid errors in the short term, the finance team is wasting valuable time waiting for the upload to complete and then has to review every item for accuracy anyway, so that they can make updates to anything that was changed in the meantime. So what's the big deal if your agency has implemented a workaround and things seem to be working better than before? Well, the time wasted, the delays in reconciliation, The errors that need to be fixed and the cost of all these things all trickle down to severely impact your agency's cash flow. So really, you should be asking yourself, what's at risk to your agency when cash flow isn't actually flowing? Cash flow is literally the lifeblood of your agency. It's the inflow and outflow of money as your agency gets paid by clients and pays its vendors. Without a proper balance of cash flow, your agency can't pay its bills, like supplies, rent, and salaries. Cash flow ensures that your agency has the funds to cover these expenses and keep the business running smoothly. Cash flow helps your agency grow. In this market, agencies need to continuously innovate and improve services to stay competitive. Positive cash flow allows you to invest in people, R&D, and tech that keeps your agency at the forefront of the competitive landscape. Without proper cash flow, your agency couldn't weather the hard times. As the economy ebbs and flows, cash flow allows your agency to weather financial challenges such as lost clients or unexpected expenses. And when it comes to media, having additional funds on hand from positive cash flow allows your media department to negotiate better deals with vendors and secure media space or time in a timely manner. So if your agency is struggling in the least bit to reconcile media payments, if you're expending large amounts of cash to prepay for media buys, but you're not recouping those funds in a timely manner, your agency is running the risk of having to shutter operations and close its doors every single day. So now you can see why it's absolutely critical that there's no friction when it comes to data sharing between your media and finance teams, and they're in lockstep to efficiently reconcile media invoices to make sure the agency is maintaining proper cash flow. But don't worry, we are here today to tell you that there's a solution. Now, agencies can seamlessly connect FreeWheel Strata platform for media stewardship with Deltek WorkBook, a total agency management solution to manage billing and financials for all marketing campaigns across media types in a truly integrated solution. WorkBook is a total agency management system that integrates your agency's operations from CRM and pipeline management to a robust foundation of project and resource management, all the way through to complete agency accounting and financial forecasting. Built by agency veterans, WorkBook is not only a project and resource management tool, it seamlessly integrates all of your back office accounting and financial activities into the same system, which gives you the visibility you need to accurately manage project costs and improve cash flow while providing foresight into revenue and its impact on the people and projects flowing through your agency. And many of you will already be familiar with Strata, FreeWheel's cross-media campaign stewardship platform that allows planning, activation, optimization, and financial management all in one system, combining a data-centric and single-hosted platform, an open integration model, and applied automation. In the upcoming demo, Teresa will show you how WorkBook and Strata work together, leveraging a true API integration to give you real-time results and help you reconcile media payments and improve cash flow with the simple click of a button. When WorkBook and Strata come together seamlessly through a true API integration, this powerful combo can help you optimize the financial reconciliation process and eliminate the friction between media and finance with a click of a button. It's currently the only offering on the market that provides that instantaneous transfer of data through an API integration. With the integration of Strata and WorkBook, there are no lengthy wait times for data imports and no tedious data reentry, just real-time results. With this real-time automated transfer of data, WorkBook and Strata help you be more confident in your agency's financial data, reduce effort and improve the efficiency of your reconciliations, get paid on time for media buys, and improve cash flow. And it's all in a unique offering that's cloud-based for easy access from anywhere, has a sleek, modern UI built specifically for how agencies really work, a true API integration that gives you real-time results, more tightly integrated with Strata than any other ERP solution, and there's no overhead cost to the Strata license for the integration. Did I already mention that this power combination transfers media and financial data back and forth with the click of a button? That's right, because it's an actual API integration. You no longer have to re-enter data or wait hours to import spreadsheets. The functionality of the integration breaks down the walls between media and finance and automates the transfer of data in real time. Okay, I think you've heard enough from me, so why don't you see it for yourself? Teresa, take it away.
Let's start with a few key concepts. The first is master data. Now, when I say master data, I want you to think of your clients. I want you to think of your vendors. Now, that could be within your resources module or within your finance module. Let's start with vendors. So as you can see, I've got KUSA TV selected, and there's a few things I want to show you that I want you to pay attention to. The first thing is that for vendors specifically, you'll notice I've got some external references set up. This lets me know that for KUSA, this is a vendor that belongs within the Spot module of Strata. We'll talk about the modules that are available in Strata in a second, and it's for TV. So this just lets me know that for this particular integration, this particular vendor is going to flow between Strata and WorkBook, because obviously you don't want all of your vendors to flow into Strata. Now, the other thing I want you to pay attention to is under the Information tab, and this is the resource ID for that particular vendor, 234. Make note of that, because in just a second, I'm going to show you what it looks like in Strata. And let's pop over and see what Strata is all about. So within Strata, as I mentioned a second ago, you are planning all of your media by media type. That could be by spot, by network, print, outdoor, or digital. And you can see I'm actually in the master data area. And if I go to vendors, I can go ahead and search for KUSA. I can also search by media filter, media type if I wanted to. And once you're within KUSA, there's two tabs to pay attention to. The first is your general tab. This is your vendor information that is actually within the resources module, because you might have a vendor set up within resources that is different from the vendor within the finance module. If I go to the billing tab, this is the vendor that is within the finance module, and you can see this very important billing code that connects the two systems, 234. Now, what about clients? Let's look at how clients are set up as well. Coming over into Workbook, I am going to enter in one of my clients, Horizon Organic. And one thing to make note of, whereas vendors are placed within particular modules of Strata, clients are obviously across modules within Strata, so cross-channel. Here, there's also another number that I want you to pay attention to, this resource ID 264. You are going to see that this is connected to Strata in just a second. And the other thing that I want to call out to you is client products. So for a particular client, you can see I've got some set up here, silk soy milk, chocolate milk. I'll show you where these are set up in Strata in a moment, but all of these client products are within your estimates area within Strata. Hopping over into Strata, if I go to clients, I can go ahead and search for Horizon Organic. And once I do that, similar to the vendor tab that we were just on, or the tabs for general and billing, this is my client information. So this is the information that's coming to me from the resources module. And the billing tab is coming from my finance information, from my finance or parent client that is paying the bills, let's say. So this billing code is 264. That's the resource ID that we just looked at a moment ago within the resources module. And then if I want to go ahead and look at the client product within Strata, I can do that. I can go to the products area, and if I search for Horizon Organic, you can see there are all of those products that are entered into Strata. Those have actually come right on over from Workbook into Strata. So that is, in a nutshell, how master data works. There are lots of other types of master data, as you can see here in the Strata menu in front of you. However, those are the main ones that I really wanted to cover. Okay, now that I've shown you and told you all about master data, now it's time to set up our project and workbook. That is the very beginning of setting up your estimate and your schedule. Your entire process starts with your project. Coming over into workbook, you can see that I have set up a project here, 1154. And so starting there, 1154 is going to be just as it was for those, the resource IDs, it's going to be a really important number, and I'll show you why in just a second. Coming into Strata, I am within the Spot module. Now I'm ready to get to work on setting up my schedule. So first I'm going to start with estimates and goals. And here you can go ahead and enter in your client name. And then you can go ahead and enter in your estimate. So this is the estimate number. Here I've created one for you for the purpose of this exercise, or of course you could create a new estimate as well. Once you've set up your estimate, you can see this is actually your project name that I have entered here. And then there's lots of other great information here. What's the media name? What is the product name? Again, these are those client products that have come through on the estimate as well from client products and workbook. And then I can enter in all of my demographic information. Over to the right, you can see the flight dates, the campaign start date, start time, end date, and end time. You have the option to have either a weekly buy or a daily buy. And then right here, this is the linchpin between the two systems. This is the workbook project number that I just created a second ago to create that project and workbook. And this is where you would enter this number in to essentially connect the two options, connect the two systems. Once I've entered in my project number, I am ready to move on to my goals. Now, in this particular example, I haven't gone crazy in terms of setting up my goals in terms of costs and other information, but I have set up 4 different markets: Dallas, Denver, Boulder, Green Bay, and Yuma. So for this particular campaign, I'm running it across 4 different markets. Once you've set up your estimate and your goals, now it's time to go ahead and set up your schedule within Strata. So I'm going to move over into the scheduling area. And once I go ahead and select the estimate that I've already set up for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to go ahead and search. I've set up this schedule, and here you can see a few different things. You can see the station. You can obviously have multiple different stations for this particular order. I've also set up the days of the week that this is going to run, the start time, end time, day part, gross rate, net rate, and then over to the right, you can see the spot length and also what are the weeks, and then what is the spot count per week. Now here with the items that are asterisked, if you wanted to go ahead and use the revision functionality, you can do that in Strata by just tracking revisions. That'll provide the -1 numbers. And then the asterisks also identify make goods. If you've got a spot that, you know, the plan was that it was going to run on this day, but it ended up running on a different day, you would use make goods for that functionality. So now that I've set up my fabulous schedule, I am ready to send that over into workbook. I can go into schedule status. I'm going to go back and find that estimate. Now, once I do that, I have the option. You can see here, I didn't specify the market. So this is showing me that I've actually already set up orders for all of those 4 markets that we talked about a second ago. And then I have the option to pick and choose which ones I want to send over to workbook. Now, once I've selected those particular orders that I want to send over into workbook, this is the magic button, the bill button. this is really one of two really important parts of this integration. When you press the bill button, it is automatically sent over into Workbook. And so you are able to see that information immediately. In this scenario, if you're working on, let's say you've got a solution where it's an import, if you press to bill, you might get an export file that you then need to go ahead and manually import into your ERP solution. And that could require that you are essentially importing information that, again, is already outdated. So once I've gone ahead and pressed the bill button, I am ready to come over into Workbook and see how it comes over. So if I come over into my estimates submodule, you can see that it's all already come over into Workbook. Two things happen when I go ahead and create a media order and push it over from Strata into Workbook. The estimate is created and the PO, or more likely POs, are created simultaneously. If you have a change to a particular buy that you've created in Strata to the schedule, you make that change in Strata, which is your source of truth, and then that information comes over into Workbook. So Strata is the source of truth, and it's really rinse and repeat. Every time you're going back through the process, you make the change within the scheduling module, and then you move over into schedule status and push it over into the financial bridge. Once you do that, it comes over into Workbook. The other thing that I want to mention here is that what's really amazing is you can see a laundry list, sort of an audit trail of what are all of the estimates that have come over from Strata in the past. So here I can see that the very first estimate that came over was 645, and I've had a whole series of revisions that have come over. My latest and greatest is this estimate 650, and you can see all of the line level detail. Had I have entered within the program area, a program like Oprah, for example, that information would come over into the description, and then you can see your line item detail around what is media commission, what the charges are, what the vendor is, that's for KUSA, and then you can see the flight start and end date as well. And from there, if you wanted to look at the other side of things for POs, you can similarly see that paper trail. So here I've got an example that I'm showing to you that actually shows that I have created vendor invoices for the purpose of this example and applied them to these POs. So these are settled at this point in time. When those estimates and the POs are coming over, our best-in-class setup is that they come over in status 10, and then they can go through your approval process. So you can dictate exactly what you want that to look like. Again, as those changes just continue to flow through, it's just rinse and repeat, and that is happening automatically with the API integration. Now, once you've got your final estimates in and your final POs in, you are ready to bill the client. All of that happens within Workbook. You are billing the client in Workbook, and you're also receiving the client payment in Workbook. That's a really important factor in terms of just making sure that you're getting those invoices out the door according to your SOW so that you don't have to front any cash. From there, let's say a few more months go down the road and you're starting to receive your vendor invoices, or you could be invoiced by your vendor in advance. The vendor invoices come in through Strata. This is really important because the matching and clearing happens in Strata, and a lot of your stations and your vendors are going to be invoicing you electronically through Strata. So now let's look at Strata and how that process works within the solution. Coming over into the spot module, and now I'm ready to go into the invoice area. If I go to invoicing, I can go ahead and select my particular estimate, and I can select what is the vendor name. And from there, I can select either do I want to create a new invoice number or select an existing invoice number. For the purpose of just clarifying a few things quickly, I'm going to press New. You can see there's two different types of vendor invoices. There's either a bottom line vendor invoice. That's if you just want to enter in a vendor invoice total. It's going to be $100,000. And then when it comes over into Workbook, it'll be a header level vendor invoice. You can also choose at the scheduling level to go ahead and prepay for a particular order. If you were to use that functionality, if you've got that turned on in Strata, no problem. That comes over as a header level vendor invoice within Workbook as well. Now, coming into the estimate that I want to go ahead and select, I'm going to do that. And from there, I can see that I've got vendor invoice 936. Now, all of this is entered at the detail level. You can see all the spot dates that I manually entered in, spot times, gross spot rate, spot length. Once I enter in all of these details, this is what actually ran. Then I would go ahead and save it, press match. And if what was planned, my schedule matches my actuals, everything automatically matches. And then I'd go ahead and close this and I'm good to go. Now, if you have a change, you would just go back to the schedule, make that change, and that way your invoice, your vendor invoice, and your schedule line up. Now, I am ready to move this and push it over from Strata into Workbook. I can do that by going into the invoice status area, and I can pick and choose what those invoices are. Typically, this would say matched versus cleared if I go back to that vendor invoice 936. So entering in vendor invoice 936, once I go ahead and select that, this is the second really important button here, clear for payment. Once I clear for payment, that is the cue that Strata is going to push this vendor invoice or vendor invoices from Strata over into Workbook. Now let's look at Workbook and see what happens over there. So if I go within my finance area, my finance module, you can see I've got this particular invoice has already come in. You can see all of the details. Now it would come in status 10, just like our POs and our estimates, and then you would just go through your normal approval process if you'd like to follow the best-in-class approach. And then from there, it just goes through the pipeline of your normal flow. Now, the really cool thing, if you've got some media folks that don't have access to the finance module, which is likely, and you've made at this point, all of the vendor payments are going to be made from Workbook. All you would do is once the payment is made, if they want to see what's the status of that particular vendor invoice, which is one of the big things. Did you pay the vendor invoice? That was one of the big questions that I got as the director of client finance at multiple agencies. And then did we bill for the client, right? So if I come back into this invoice status area, I can see I've actually paid them on a few different payments, and this is the amount that I paid. So that just gives that tracking availability to your media teams. That is the Strata and Workbook integration in a nutshell. I hope you found this knowledgeable, and thank you so much for your time and have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. That's really powerful, getting to see that true API integration in action. All right, so before we open the floor for audience questions, let's just sum up what we've seen today. First of all, you should all walk away from this demo understanding that manual processes, spreadsheets, and short-term workarounds just aren't going to cut it. To actually make your processes more efficient, you have to automate that data transfer. It's just table stakes at this point. What this does is provide real-time accurate data, which improves your cash flow. And we all know what's at risk when cash flow isn't truly flowing. Your agency runs the risk of shutting down every day without positive cash flow. And with the help of FreeWheel, Deltek, and PCI, who's the sales and services arm for Deltek WorkBook in North America, you can get up and running on this integration quickly and start seeing a return faster than if you were to build a connection yourself. If you're interested in learning more about Workbook, go to deltek.com/workbook. To reach a representative or schedule a demo, please reach out to PCI. Together, Workbook and Strata help streamline agency workflow and data exchange without losing valuable functionality, all so that you can run a profitable agency while also optimizing media performance for your clients. We would be remiss to continue without mentioning that we also have an online proofing tool in our Deltek Agency Solutions arsenal that integrates seamlessly with Workbook. Deltek Concept Share brings online proofing into the project management process and accelerates creative reviews and approvals as part of your creative workflow. With Concept Share, you can attack the biggest bottleneck in the creative process and streamline creative production by accelerating the review and approval cycle, while also reducing unnecessary rework and recurring revision rounds. Concept Share consolidates communication and version control into the same place so that your team can get clear, actionable feedback and deliver more creative content faster and at less cost. Learn more about Concept Share at deltek.com/conceptshare, or again, reach out to PCI for a demo. All right, thank you again for your attention today. We really look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Now let's open the floor to audience questions. All right, so it looks like we are waiting for some of you to answer or to ask us some questions. So please feel free to enter any questions that you have in the Q&A panel, and Teresa and I will answer them as they come in. And if we get more than we can answer in the next 20 minutes, then of course we will answer them offline. But let's just see what we can tackle while we're all still on the line. Let's start out with, all right, so we do have a question about if this recording is going to be sent out. So I will let you know that this recording will be available after the fact for you to watch again on demand, and you will be getting some follow-up and with the recording and the slides in a couple business days. So thank you for asking that question. Another question that we can go ahead and answer is if you currently already have an ERP that has an integration to Strata, what is the difference with this integration through Workbook? Well, that's a good question because we do have some competition out there in the agency ERP space that say that they do have a workaround for this process. But like I mentioned at the outset of the webinar, many times that's simply just an import-export functionality, and that's why a lot of those customers are having that issue with the lag time waiting for media spreadsheets to import into their accounting system. All the while they can't use the accounting system, so they're kind of sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and by the time it gets uploaded, something might have changed, so they have to just check it all anyways. So that's the biggest difference with some of the so-called integrations that are out there. And then there's also potentially some legacy integrations that are no longer being supported with future releases of the software. So again, the Workbook and Strata integration is the only true API integration currently out there on the market with an agency ERP, and that provides that true automated real-time data transfer with the click of a button. All right, it looks like we have another question. I think this one is for you, Teresa. Does Workbook handle credits for media that under-delivered?
Absolutely. This happens all the time, right? So I feel like media is one of those things very differently, even from production expenses, where things seem to change like on a dime every day, right? The numbers are shifting, or every week. So yes, absolutely. The important thing to know is that, so this schedule is, as I expressed, is all built obviously in Strata. And if you have a plan, and basically the vendor, if there are make goods or credits that the vendor is passing on to you, those would all flow. That would all be within Workbook, because you're doing the billing. So you're essentially, depending on your SOW with the client, you could be advanced billing and then reconciling. So you would provide those credits back to the client as well. I think there's some cases where you would be getting, a credit from the vendor. And in that instance, yes, it would absolutely flow through the integration as well. I hope that answered your question. But yeah, that's an everyday occurrence.
Yeah, and if we need to clarify our answers or anything, please still use that Q&A panel to ask any follow-up questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's ask another commonly asked question. Can you customize the integration? Teresa, I think you can answer that for us.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do have a best-in-class integration between Workbook and Strata. That being said, there are some options, and there's some flexibility in terms of that integration as well. So we partnered with a third-party partner to essentially build the integration that works lockstep with ourselves and our partner PCI. And there's some flexibility, but I think you're going to find that the options that we have set up in the best-in-class solution are exactly what you're going to need, with some variances. For example, do we, bring over the estimates and the orders? Are those coming over as approved, or do you want to go through your standard approval process? Do you want the source of truth to be, in terms of master data, to be in Strata, or do you want that to be in Workbook and flow into Strata? So there's some, I think about 12 or 13 questions that are like decision tree questions. Do you want this or do you want that? But again, the best-in-class solution sort of checks all those boxes for you, so that it's super straightforward and sort of the best solution that exists out there from that perspective.
Well, along those same lines of your answer, another commonly asked question when it comes to this integration is, which is the source of truth, right? Is that Strata? Is it Workbook? Could it be one? Could it be the other, depending on your agency's workflow?
Yeah. So you kind of have that's a choice that you can make, right? So if you have been with Strata for a long time, we have customers that really want Strata to be that source of truth and that information to flow into Workbook. An important thing to know whenever you're building an integration is that you want to make sure that that data is cleaned up. Right? So you want to make sure that if you have Strata being the source of truth, that all of that information is accurate and up to date, so that when it flows over into Workbook, you've got that that clarity. So there's usually a cleanup step that is involved in either scenario, I would say.
All right. Well, with that, I think we've answered all of our audience questions and a few that are most commonly asked. So with that, I would like to just again thank you all for your attention today, and I will pass the mic back over to Rebecca.
Thank you, Reagan, and thank you, Teresa, and thank you all for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions that you did not ask yet, please feel free to reach out to us and we will get back to you. And as Reagan mentioned, you will receive a copy of the recording and slides within 2 business days. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.